Okay, there we go. Welcome, 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 welcome. Not okay. We're live. Okay, thank you. Where are you going? Oh, there it is. Welcome everybody. My machine went funny on me there. Dave's gone away for coffee. So good morning, Betty. Good morning, Rick. And Dave must be sleeping in. Yeah, not quite. He was here on time.
I just ran out to grab a copy, Rick. I was here.
Yeah. Just to let you know, so we were talking about this adjudicator Brown yesterday, and that immigration case, right? With the illegal immigrant, right? Angela had a hearing yesterday at the Social Benefits Tribunal in front of adjudicator Brown.
Well,
yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. Hers was about an ODSP recipient who had been cut off. But I spoke to her about this particular individual and what she knew about it. And she basically said, well, part of the problem here is because the person's been here so long, and her understanding is that he's had legal jobs. So the fact that he's had legal jobs means there's some legality in his stay. And that's maybe why he was awarded, the award came.
Yeah, well, whatever it is, it's not going to, he has to have his side of the story told, of course, but to have an illegal sponging off the system, that's the way people see it. I'm not saying that's exactly the way it is, but.
And the problem here is the Sun basically put it in a particularly tainted way, didn't they?
Yeah, of course they did. They were. You can't sell papers unless you rage bait a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Rick says, or he doing an investigation. Yeah. So of course, somewhere along the line tonight, like there's two issues I see that are important here. Is the one that Mike Cusman has sent us about a Salit steel.
Yeah, I was going to go on to that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and the strike there, and of course, that blithering nonsense from the pumpkin down below.
Well, we'll get to both of them.
I would laugh more if I didn't think it was a dangerous thing, a dangerous precedent, but we'll get into that too.
Yeah. Okay, so Salit still are on strike. And at the same time, Stephen Cohen, the owner of Salit Steel, is suing the city of Niagara Falls in the Ontario Supreme Court of Justice. The lawsuit relates to those who built the new housing next to the Salit Steel plant and resulted in residential noise complaints. Well, tough shit. Salit Steel has been there forever. They're one of the best employers in this area, one of the better employers in this area. They've been there forever. We need those kind of jobs local to us.
Yes. So Mike has put out the. I'll read what he put in. He has a better article on Facebook, but I'll just put this is a kind of a brief one that he put here on our messenger. And he says here, Salit Steel on strike. Steve Cohen, the owner of Salit Steel, is suing the city of Niagara Falls in Ontario's Superior Court of Justice. The lawsuit centers on the city allowing new residential housing to be built next to his long-standing industrial facility, which resulted in residential noise complaints that disrupted operations. Because of the planning decisions and resulting noise limits, Cohen cited that it became impossible to operate the business out of the Niagara Falls facility, prompting the company to shift the majority of its operations to Welland, Ontario. Great. Take some jobs away.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, City of Niagara Falls. He offered concessions to the Niagara Falls workers, taking advantage of the situation. This will also help with his lawsuit. do not worry about your workers that are the longest standing employees of Salit Steel, being the mother company. Poor planning by the city of Niagara Falls, with housing encroaching on industrial industry, causing friction from noise and dust, are a huge problem created by the city. They ignore industrial boundaries and place houses too close. The outcome is loss of jobs. What new companies are going to locate in Niagara Falls with no industrial section separate from housing? Lawsuited and complaints of noise, smells, dust are thus are inevitable, and companies do not need the clash. Our city should have learned from the past, like Love Canal and the assignments. Our history can teach us, yet our city has totally disseminated chances of industry. Anyway, the company owner knows how everything has gone up, and so on and so forth. At the same time, the employees are on strike, so that's a different issue.
Yeah.
So I agree completely here. This has come up in city council the other day. Lori Lococo came up with something to try to some sort of a bridge between industrial. At that time, I thought it was I thought it was Washington Mills, but here it says Salit Steel. Yeah, I agree with them completely. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like Thundering Waters, whatever, that residential section there. Oh, okay, they moved it into an industrial area or right beside it. What do you expect? You get the same problems with farmers. You get farmers telling them, don't put your residential area here because I still farm here. And then the farmer's up at 5 a.m. plowing his field, and he gets noise complaints, and he's spraying his crops. And everybody says, oh, no, you can't do that. He says, well, I've been doing it long before you were here.
Yeah, I've been doing it since.
And I warned you not to come here, and yet you did. And now I'm the bad guy?
Yeah. I've been doing it since 1262, and now you're complaining. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I agree with them here completely. I remember complaints about Hodgson Steel up there on Kaler, at one time a remote spot, and houses got in there. And of course, I worked in that place. You had 3 shifts going there at one time. Of course, it's going to make noise. What did you expect? And everybody tells you if you build a house beside a factory, you're going to get factory noise. You know.
Well,
this is just ridiculous.
You see, I remember. Yeah, I remember. You see, I remember. Well, when I was a kid, there was not where I actually lived, but I had friends who lived around the corner from this laundry, because the laundry had 2 shifts in the day. One started at 8 and one finished. So it started at 8 and ended at 4, and then there was a 4 till midnight shift, right? So of course you heard laundry. You heard noises like usually like air noises from there, right? Because there was high pressure air systems in that factory, in the laundry, right? But you'd hear those noises if you're in his house, and it wasn't, they basically. When I first arrived there, we got to his house, and he said, "Oh, it's the laundry. Don't worry about it." Right? You just got used to it. It was part of, because it was in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah. Well, there was that laundry right at Palmer and what was it? Is it Simcoe Street? Yeah, right. No. Right in the old part of town there. Anyway, so that went all. I mean, that was right in the middle of the neighborhood too, but nobody complained about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, as far as I know, so seriously, I don't know what they're talking about here. You have helicopters going overhead making a hell of a lot of racket all the time. That used to drive me nuts when I lived on Ontario Avenue. And yet the city always looked the other way on that one. The city now has done the dumb thing and put a residential area right beside a industrial area and expects the industrial area to reduce its noise when it's never had to before.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, I'm with Mr. Cohen, who happens to be the perpetrator of the lawsuit. I expect he's the owner of Salit Steel, or at least the manager.
Yeah.
Salit Steel is the mother plant. They created a franchise that spreads from the East Coast to the West Coast. Niagara Falls employees are the longest standing employees with 30 years seniority. Lovely. Yeah, well, we don't want those guys to lose their job, do we?
No.
Definitely not.
No, absolutely
Salit
not.
Steel looks like it's a successful company, so we don't want them. And Gary here says number 6 furnace. Oh, I worked on number 6 furnace. I can tell you that furnace used to burn so bad it was heard right to St. Lawrence Avenue. I didn't dare take a company truck home. Yes, yeah, I guess he might be stoned on his way. But yeah, so I worked on number 6 furnace. I'm telling you, I was in there and my shoes lit on fire. I remember that. I remember I was changing the electrodes in there. God, what a brutal job that was. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, those are electric furnaces and they make noise, you know. You want to go to Washington Mills, but they got electric furnaces, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They make noise. They make noise. So why are you putting houses beside them?
Yeah. And if you're going to move into a house next to a factory, expect noise.
Yeah.
Right?
It was an industrial park. So if you put a residential, like the city in its infinite wisdom, and then tell the factory where guys work, make money, and have jobs, right? And you tell them, oh, hey, you're making noise. You're keeping me awake at night. And you're saying, well, like for 30, 40 years, nobody was here. How come you're here now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Why did you build a house when you know there's an industry here?
Yeah.
Now, how am I doing noise violations when nobody mentioned that for the last 100 years?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. Yes. So Cohen is suing through the Ontario Supreme Court. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. This brings me on to one of the pieces you sent me, which I thought was quite interesting. First customer complaint in history, back in the Babylonian eras, they basically there was a load of tablets that were found in the 1920s in an archaeological dig in near the city of Ur in modern day Iraq. And they've been deciphering these tablets. Now they know more about the cuneiform language that's used on the tablets. And they record all sorts of things, including religious celebrations. But of course, one of the big things that they record is financial records. And in relation to that, there was the first ever complaint in history. And it talks about, who do you think you are, treating someone like me with such contempt?
All right, let's put this in Sumeria. The ancient Sumerian, like I thought we'd probably do this at the end of the show, but we'll do it here and then we'll get it done. So anyway, I found this. It's called the first customer complaint in the history, the story of Nani and Nazar. This is a civilization in Sumeria, the oldest civilization known to humankind. It started at 3,500 BC. That means it's 5,500 years old minimum. At least that's when the writing started with the cuneiform. Anyway, so about 4,000 years ago, there's a merchant and a supplier get into a huff. And Nasser is supposed to supply this fella Nani with copper ingots, and but he messes up the deal completely. And the reason why
Yeah.
this is of interest is because it's just recently been translated. So what they find
Yes.
is in the ancient Mesopotamian world, like this is going on. It's kind of a complaint you would see anytime at any point in history, whether it was 4,000 years ago or 4 hours ago. It's a guy saying, "Hey, you promised me some ingots," and I went all the way down to Dilmun, which is modern day Bahrain. It's a dangerous place to go, and I sent my servants down there to complete the deal, and they came back with nothing. And you didn't have anything. You are just like you've treated me badly. We try to make this deal, and you can't come through. What's the matter? And he's just railing on. Apparently, this comes from Nazar's house that was being excavated in the ancient city of Mesopotamia, and there are more complaints in there. I guess he wasn't exactly the greatest businessman. And in those days, you didn't have paper; you had clay tablets. And the clay tablets you wrote with a form of writing called cuneiform, the very first known writing to humankind. And I just thought it was very amusing.
Apparently, about this, that they had when they were doing the clay tablets, they some of the early ones would actually use, they kind of scratched out the words from the clay tablets, but then later on they actually had letters that they could put in there, like that would push into the tablet.
It is called cuneiform, right?
Yeah.
It's called cuneiform.
They had metal letters that it was like they had a they had a stamp or something that would go stamp into the tablet for each letter.
No, they didn't. No, they could make stamps for other things, for seals and so on. What they did is they had a stylus. It was made of a reed, a common reed found everywhere in Mesopotamia. And it had a special triangular end to it, similar. And they would put the pattern, just like today, if we put a line and then another line angular, another line angular down, it would be a K. But they did that same sort of thing with the stylus. And they would press these symbols into the clay, and each one of them would be a letter or word. And the writing system was so good that other languages adopted it. So if you find one written in Akkadian and one written in Sumerian, you wouldn't be able to. One was a different language, but any case, they came up with that style of writing, the very first. It was very, very good, and this, of course, comes from the ancient city of Ur. You can find that city in the Bible. Yeah. It was among the very first cities around. Inanna was the goddess of Ur, I believe, and later to become Ishtar.
I would take your word for that one. I don't know about the gods and goddesses of ancient Mesopotamia.
In any case, it was just pretty cool because, as it points out here, styles, everything's changed. You wouldn't recognize anything if you went back there, but you would recognize customer complaints.
Yeah.
And this was what this really was a customer complaint. And not only that, it was really angry one too. Like you not only you treated my servants bad, you treated me bad. You didn't come through with this. You sent me all the way down to Dilmun, which is a dangerous trip, and I come back with nothing. What's with it? What's with that? You know?
Yeah. And hey, did that lead to the world's first lawsuit?
Yeah, it may have. Well, look, not long. There was two major law codes that we know of. One, of course, is the famous Hammurabi's Code. That happens in and around this time, probably about 300 or 400 years later, Hammurabi's Code. But there was one that predated Hammurabi's Code, and they would deal with stuff like this. if you promised a guy copper ingots and you didn't, if you didn't deliver, then you have to compensate him X away or that away or whatever,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. 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 So breach of contract is still a thing back then.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. And that actually is quite fascinating. That the way we trade today is mapped upon the way we trade from hundreds of years ago, or thousands of years ago. All right. Okay, so moving on. One thing we didn't get to yesterday is some Democrats are basically saying they'll oppose a bid to cut off Israeli aid. Not that we really expect this will pass, but there's kind of splits in the Democrats about the use of Israeli aid to Israel from the US.
I put that in there because we find Hakeem Jeffries is in a hypocritical position. He is in a situation where he takes AIPAC money. He takes money from AIPAC, and he knows he's snug as a bug in a rug if you take AIPAC money, because they're not going to bother you. You don't have to take much. You just have to take a little. And that is a message to them that I will vote any way you want me to vote on anything to do with Israel. So it doesn't matter to AIPAC if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or anything else. As long as, and they give you a minder, some guy comes along, and anytime there's a bill to do with Israel, they come knocking on your door and they tell you, this is the way we want you to vote on this. And he's fine with that up until now, because guess what? There is a revolt in the United States happening against Israel and other countries that take a lot of American money, but in particular Israel, because it is not behaving itself. It has caused a genocide in Gaza, killed 70,000+ people, killed 22,000 kids or 25,000 kids, maimed 100,000, and it won't stop. It's brutality on the West Bank, southern Lebanon, and Gaza, and this has piqued a lot of interest. So the Democrats are moving away from them. However, Democrats used to be a big supporters of Israel, and this is a problem for them. Hakeem Jeffries has got to know that you cannot take AIPAC money and be a shill for Israel any longer and expect to get elected. Yeah. And he's trying to resist this Thomas Massey bill, who is a Republican, by the way, who objects to what Israel has been doing.
Hakeem Jeffries, in case people don't know, is the House Minority Leader. So he's the leader of the Democrats in the House, right?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. It's okay. We can make assumptions and then we forget we've made assumptions, right? Okay, so and as such, that's why his view matters. And basically, he's telling Democrats you better get on board with Israel.
Well, he's got to be very careful. He's saying he doesn't going to. He's saying that this bill is a problem because if this bill goes through, there won't be money for peacemaking. There won't be money for development over there, which isn't happening anyway. So he's trying to find a way of wiggling that around, and basically it's not working because even the Republicans are moving away from Israel, and the Republicans are split on Israel and the Democrats are split on Israel, and there's a real movement away from AIPAC, and there is anger that the Israeli lobby has so controlled the American policies of the last 30 or 40 years. And that is because, as I said before, 75% of Congress and the Senate are in the pocket of AIPAC.
Yeah.
Whose loyalty do you have? Like Tucker Carlson keeps saying, whose loyalty do you have? Are you loyal to America, or are you loyal to Israel. We're a huge country, the most powerful country in the world, and yet we shell out massive amounts of money to Israel. Israel has free education, free medical, all this. How do you think they afford all of that? Whereas the Americans don't have any of that. They don't have free education. They don't have free health care. How does Israel afford all that?
Well, they have free education, but not healthcare. Yeah.
I thought they had healthcare, free healthcare.
No,
like us.
Sorry, no. The U.S. has free education, as in
not post-secondary,
not post-secondary. Yeah, not post-secondary. But no country in the world has post-secondary free.
Well, they have they have much cheaper, right? I don't know exactly, but I read it that way. So maybe that's not exactly right, but they definitely have healthcare. I don't know how their education. Yeah. Their education is probably, softened the prices of education is softened. Because why? Because the big piles of cash coming from the U.S.
Yeah.
So basically, and we find here that J.D. Vance too has really scathingly come down against Israel for trying. He has claimed that Israel is trying to make this a forever war for the United States and is working hard to make sure that no peace deal ever happens. They want U.S. committed in there for years to come until the collapse of Iran, which will cost the American taxpayer gigantic amounts of money, of course.
Absolutely, yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Moving on. A couple of things happened, of course, about our air quality. One, we've got continuing problems, although at the moment the sun is shining. In fact, the sun was shining halfway through the show yesterday, and by the time I actually left home, there was distinct air quality issues. Now, at the moment, I can see blue sky.
Yeah, although this morning I opened up the window and I still smelled smoke.
Yeah.
So I'm still lingering in there, and it's hurting, but again, I gotta laugh at this. I gotta laugh at this. Republicans in the United States, Republicans, of course, it's got to be Republicans because they're kind of brainless anyway. They're blaming Canada for the smoke. Come on, man, you're making a lot of smoke up there. We're gonna sue you, man.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, so, and hey, we joked the other day about Trump tariffing it, but now the Republicans are being stupid about this, right?
Yeah, they did this last year. The Manitoba Premier Canoe said last year, and I think he'll probably say it similar this year, that they're looking for attention. A big way in order to get attention, as you know, like politicians like to jump on something that's not going to harm them at all and make them look good. You remember when that Jackson girl, when she was singing at the Super Bowl, her nipple was exposed for half a second, and just about every Republican in Congress had to make a big speech about it. That kind of thing. And this is the same kind of thing. They're looking for attention. Webb Canoe, the premier of Manitoba, says they're having a timber tantrum. How is anybody going to stop wildfires? They're saying that it's Canada's mismanagement of the forests, and that's the reason why this has happened. Yeah, I feel for the people of the United States and Southern Ontario too that have to put up with this, but how do you stop wildfires? Now they're complaining. Now they may have some issue to point out, because we do know that Doug Ford and his infinite imbecility cut back on forest fire resources.
Yeah, but what we have right now is we have more out of control forest fires that are closer to Southern Ontario, which is why we here are seeing the issue. But these are not, overall, they're not any worse than they are. Well, I suppose a little bit worse than they are in other years.
Sometimes they're worse than others. Well, they've got fires going on in Minnesota. I wonder if the Republicans are complaining about the forest fires that's going on in Minnesota. I wondered if they complained about the fires that happen in the West, in the U.S. West. They have forest fires there too. The problem here is, of course, they can make a big lot of noise, look like they're doing something about something they know that cannot be helped. And they can blame Canada. Hey, Canada, you don't see the Democrats doing that because they got a few more brain cells than the average Republican. But they say, hey, Canada, you got this big fire going on up there. You should have stopped it, man. Yeah, my house is all smoky now, man.
Yeah,
I'm gonna sue you.
But I think the
might as well sue Mother Nature.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing now, though, is these wildfires are getting closer to southern Ontario than they perhaps were last year or at other times. And also, I noticed there's actually so at the moment in 2026, at 17th of July, we are lower than we were. Well, we're on a par with 2024. We're lower than 2025 and lower than 2023.
Let's make this very clear. Let's make it very clear to the Republicans in the United States. I mean, well, the first thing I want you to do is make sure you got your grade 8 before you carry on, right? So you can understand this explanation. And then after you get your grade 8, I'll tell you that, you know what? The boreal forests regenerate themselves. How? With forest fires. That's part of the environment. So we have a lot. And guess what? We had a really, really hot umbrella of hot, dry air come up from Texas.
Yeah.
We're going to sue you for that. Definitely going to sue you for that because that started more fires because of the hot, dry conditions that came up from conditions that came up from Texas that caused a lot of dry lightning, which would ignite the forest. So definitely we're going to sue you. You should do something more about your air quality.
Absolutely.
So dry lightning, Mother Nature shoots some dry lightning into the forest and it ignites. And this is part of what boreal forests do. They reestablish themselves through forest fires. And as a matter of fact, seed pods cannot open up unless they have been in a fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, actually, that's exactly it. And some of these, it's the next generation of trees that come out of these forests that are waiting to happen. And it's just that intense heat wave, which has been dissipated by some of the dust in the atmosphere. Otherwise, we'd have been in the high 30s during the course of this week. And in fact, most of the time, we've kept the temperature perhaps 10 degrees lower than it might otherwise have been because of the haziness in the upper atmosphere.
In any case, to blame Ontario and Canada for the forest fires and the smoke that's coming down there, you might as well blame Mother Nature. Now, I would say that Doug Ford should open his eyes a bit here. He's taken away resources from the forest fire, but that's only been in the last couple of years, so that wouldn't really have affected this. But how do you do that? And I can tell you for a fact, I know a guy who is a forest fire guy up there. Yeah. He fights forest fires. That's what he does for a living. He is now going around all around Ontario and around the fire areas, telling them that, look, we only have so many resources, and if you're, and there are $500,000 lodges up there, fishing lodges and stuff, and he's got to go to them and say, look, we can't help you if the fire comes this way. We can't. What they do is they try to put up protected areas with sprinkler systems. So if you have a group of houses in a small town or a village or something like that, what they'll do is they'll try to establish a sprinkler system to protect them. But they cannot protect much of what's up there because no insurance company will insure those places up there. So if you have built a fishing lodge up there for $500,000 and a fire comes through, you've lost everything because no insurance is going to help you.
Yeah. All right. And so Rick says it's Carney's fault. Right. I knew Mr. Conspiracy Theory would come through on that one, right?
Well, I heard he was driving through and he was smoking a spliff and he threw it outside his car without snuffing it out first.
Who, Carney?
That's caused the fire. Yeah, Carney.
Carney caused the fire. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He's smoking a big fatty and he didn't snuff it out before he threw it out his window.
Right. So did Carney take the money away? Yeah. Okay. No, Doug Ford took the money away.
Yeah, Doug did. Yeah. I don't know to what extent it was, but he did. And that was a couple of years ago. So whatever's happening now wouldn't have been affected by that anyway.
Yeah.
But I will quote an American forester who has said that among North America, when he was talking about the Western forest fires in the United States a few years ago, he said that at that time that it was the erroneous management of forest. He said that everyone was trying to stop the fires over and over and over again, which meant a lot of undergrowth and debris built up on the forest floors.
Yeah.
Because the natural fires hadn't gone and burnt that off. So what you have, if you've stopped so many fires and that undergrowth debris on the forest floor builds up, and then when you do have a big fire, it's almost impossible to stop because there's so much fuel on the forest floor. So what they're trying to do these days to control manage forests is have controlled fires, find ways in which to deflect or to control a fire, but let fires happen, because that's the natural way of a boreal forest.
Yeah. The other thing is to note that the most extreme fires are actually are up in Nunavut and Northwest Territory areas.
Up there?
Yep.
When did that happen?
That's basically the fires are extreme up there, according to this is a map that's out on this is on the CBC article.
I didn't think they had enough timber up there to have a major.
Well, I don't know, but I don't know how that works. But that's where they're saying the most extreme fires are.
Yeah, because there's the tree line up there, and part of Nunavut and Northwest Territories is within the tree line, and some of them without. Any case, what else we got? Well, we should talk about the that speech last night.
Which speech? Tell us.
Well, the only speech. It was the Pumpkin's big speech last night. He addressed the nation. Two of the networks didn't even bother broadcasting it. They didn't want his nonsense on their television. I saw it on Fox. I think it was Fox, but I tried to find it on PBS and it wasn't. So he addressed the nation last night with his President Trump with his new conspiracy theory. Evidently, it was the Chinese all along that messed with the voters in the United States and was able to mess up the 2020 election. And that's why President Trump lost. He didn't really lose. It was the Chinese who did this. And of course, the Chinese are rolling their eyes back. He's being mocked steadily from the Chinese. We see that China did meddle with our elections, didn't they? China came in here and tried to meddle with our elections. Yeah. This is not anything different in any democracy. You have outside players. We had when the Russia thing happened. No, Russia did not. Trump's campaign did not have anything to do with Russia, despite the fact that Russia preferred Trump over Hillary and did try to get Trump elected or more than Hillary, but they weren't very effective That's what even the Mueller report said. That wasn't effective. Trump's campaign had nothing to do with it. The Russians tried it and they didn't do too well. We find that too here in Canada, where the Chinese have stuck their nose in our business, and they're not very effective either. They might have some effect in certain jurisdictions where there's a lot of Chinese people.
Yeah, and they've got maybe control of 3 or 4 seats nationwide. That's it.
Not even that. Not even that, because the telescope is really on it now. What President Trump had said here is just nonsense. He hasn't provided any proof anywhere, anytime, of any of the accusations he's made since January 6th. He said the election was stolen. He's never proven any of that. He's had years and years. The Republican Party's had years and years and years. They had 62 or 60 something attempts at trying to find out of charges and stuff like that, and investigations, none of which came out. In Arizona, they had three recounts, 3 of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We've had 5.5 years of we're 5.5 years away from that date, and still there's no proof.
No, there's no proof. But now that he's saying that the Chinese have done it all along, they're the ones that messed with the voter tolls. Now you see, Tulsi Gabbard was with the FBI when they raided Fulton County in Georgia, trying to find evidence of voter manipulation of some kind or other. And what they did was find nothing. And she pulled out. She pulled out of that because she was very uncomfortable with the whole thing. So she used whatever excuse she could get out of there, because she was very uncomfortable with what they're trying to do. They're trying to manufacture some sort of voter fraud thing. The Save America thing, I'm not so sure. Look, if you're an illegal and you come to the United States, are you going to go to the voter booth? Are you?
No.
That's a place where you could be discovered as an illegal.
Yeah.
Right? Definitely. That's the dumbest place to go if you're an illegal.
Yeah.
And there's been very, very little evidence anywhere, no matter how much of a studies they do and how intense it is, that illegals are voting in mass in elections. And most of the time it's people who think they have a status. They've been living here for so long, they think they have the status of a citizen, but they don't. I think the last election was 1,800. Over the last 3 elections, they found people were not with wrong status.
That's in the size of America, that's a small blip, right?
It's so small you can't even call it a blip.
Exactly.
You can only call it a blip.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a small blip. It really is a meaningless statistic. A couple of thousand in a vote, in that voting population. Yeah. It's meaningless.
Well, the problem here is
you're right. Those are people that think they have status.
The problem here is, I'm afraid that President Trump, he's trying to find enemies and evil things for people to be afraid of.
Yeah.
It's a communist around every corner. I was a teenage communist from 1955. He must have seen that and thinking, oh, that's what I'll use against McCarthy. Joseph McCarthy had a lot of run with that communist thing back in the 50s, right?
And all proven to be fake at the end. Yes, there were a few communist actors. There were a few people who had friends who were communists, right? But that's not unusual.
Look, it got hysterical. Yeah. They threw Oppenheimer out. He was the guy responsible for the atomic bomb and the hydrogen bomb. They tossed him out, Oppenheimer. They tossed out writers and everything else like that, had to change their names and everything. It was terrible because it was a witch hunt. And the Big Pumpkin would like nothing better than a witch hunt, fear of communists, fear of the Chinese messing with your. Now the Democrats claim, and I'm not so sure the writer on this, but they claim that Trump is trying to get into the individual states' election processes. In other words, the states run their own elections as they feel fit. He doesn't like that. He wants to have control. He wants to tell them how it's done, and he wants to use excuses of the safety of the American voter and the Save America bill and all that.
Yeah.
That's what they think he's trying to do. He sees a midterm coming where it doesn't look good for him. So he's trying to manipulate the situation in which he can control the vote. That is their accusation.
But the thing as I was going to say about that is, with the midterm coming and the war lengthening, it probably is better for Donald Trump than a situation whereby the war is over and done and dusted already, and we get back to reality, we get back to Epstein, we get back to Gaza and other things like that have been ongoing for years, and especially the Epstein files have died a death.
Look, this is nothing new. He's looking for a distraction. Look what George Bush did with the weapons of mass destruction. He knew damn well that there was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He knew that, and yet he told everybody about that. He made everybody very, very afraid. And Rick says here, "You're wrong, Dave," says Rick. Well, it would be the first time this year.
No. Keep it up, Rick. You're right. He's more. He thinks he's deluded. He's got correctness delusion syndrome, right? Dave is always correct delusion syndrome. That's for sure.
You guys got wheels derangement syndrome.
You're as correct. You're as correct as anything. That yes, Dave is mistaken at times.
Well, what part was I wrong about? That's the question.
I'm not reading Ricky's mind. But
Well, if you want to read my mind, get ready to be there for a century. I mean, volumes upon volumes of knowledge in here.
Yeah, but the thing is, how much of it is useful?
Well, there's a lot of good comic books out there.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Well, anyway, so the fact of the matter is, this is the Democrats are believing that that Trump wants to control the elections coming up, because they don't look like they're going this way. He's got to do something desperate. The first thing he tried, of course, was try to help Texas gerrymander their state so that there will be more Republicans voted there, the 5 more Republican certain seats kind of thing. That started California to do the same thing. Other states have done it. Other states said they're not going to do it. They have a genuine problem with gerrymandering. The Republicans have resisted, the ones that resisted the most about any kind of reforms on gerrymandering, which the Democrats can sanctimoniously say, "We told you this was going to happen," kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But basically speaking, I think I said this yesterday. I think Trump's going to get kicked out by his own Republican Party. I think the kind of madness that he speaks of when he talks as a speech like that, they can't hold with him too much longer. He started a war that he can't finish. He insisted that he could could stop the Ukraine war in a day. It's been 500 days since he's been in office, and he can't touch it.
Yeah.
He said he could stop the Gaza war. He can't do that. Netanyahu slaps him around like a little kid.
Yeah.
He's just got nothing. And so the only thing he's got is fear. And so that's why there's going to be a communist around every corner, an evil communist. And let's face it, Ma'am Danny and all the other social democrats want to destroy the United States. For what reason, he can't tell you, but that is their objective in life, is to destroy the United States.
And I've seen some propaganda out there. Well, I don't know where it's coming from, but there's certain types of propaganda out there that I've seen now, which is that accusing Japan of being an Islamic State. Right? Haven't you seen it? I've seen it on some of these stupid things that come out there. You know?
Well, let's face it. The Republicans base is pretty ignorant, and they can be swayed. The American public, generally speaking, top to bottom, are very ignorant people. They know their own country, and sometimes not even that. They're poorly educated on the rest of the world. That's why they can be talked into things like weapons of mass destruction, because they don't understand. They don't understand the difference between Saddam Hussein, who was a Ba'ath Party dictator, and somebody like Osama bin Laden. In their mind, they're all Arabs with guns, so we got to go in war with them. And that is the biggest problem I see, even in Canada too, is our general ignorance of the world. Right? Because rage baiting Fox or rage baiting CNN can lay out some superficial facts and get everybody all upset because they don't really understand what's going on over there. But it's a fear factor. I think it is. I think Trump is trying to get the fear factor thing going. Communists around every corner, evil, godless communists who want to destroy the United States for whatever reason. I don't know.
Yeah, but again, Gary's basically saying, "Phew! I thought I was on the wrong show. Glad to see I'm on the right show again." Talking Trump.
Hey, you were the one that asked for this to be spoken of. There was a previous comment before we were talking about it, Gary. So here we did. We brought it up, and because of course he did that speech last night. That's why he's here, and he started a war. That's why we talk about it. He can't stop the war in Ukraine. That's why we talk about him. He can't stop the war in Israel, in Gaza. So that's why we talk about him. And he gets slapped around by Netanyahu. That's why we talk about him.
Yeah. All right. We got
it. And he's nuts.
Okay, so Brock University professor was talking about safe consumption sites for alcohol and being bars, right? Tell us about this.
I don't know. It's been a few days since I read that article, but basically what it had said was Brock University, like they're shutting down safe injection sites.
Yeah.
That's part of the Doug Ford policy, is to shut down safe injective sites. Because what we found with safe injection sites is a place where dealers hang out, basically. Mm-hmm. And that's where people could come and get their drugs. But the other part of the safe injection site is people can inject themselves. And if they run into physical problems, if the drug does something bad to them, then medical aid can come really quick.
Yeah.
Also, people can look over the drug. Ostensibly, people can look at it and say, you know what? This is not what you think you bought.
Yeah.
You know, and if you take an injection of this, you're going to have to make it a smaller one because you don't know what's in this. And so that just saves people. They can get clean needles, and it can save them. It'll reduce the amount of deaths and overdoses and all that.
And
But
still,
on the other hand, what happens is that's a great place for dealers to hang out. They all hang out
yeah,
there. That's where
well,
they go. You want to shoot
that's
up
actually
here.
one of the
Here's
reasons.
a place that has needles. Here's a place where you can have a chair to sit down. And here's a place where I can sell you the drugs.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why I'm a bit uncertain about the value of safe injection sites. In theory, I like the idea, but it's the fact that with the dealers that are associated with it, that's a problem, right?
Yes, so that's the issue with safe injection sites, and the Brock University professors are trying to make the analogy of a bar. What is a bar?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is a safe place for people to go and drink.
I
Yeah, well, definitely, but alcohol is nowhere near the destructive power of street drugs.
yeah.
I mean,
I
seriously, I
don't.
don't think the comparison goes very far. You want to compare it more likely to an opium den. So I think the Brock professors here trying to make an analogy that doesn't really work.
Yeah,
Because let's face
I
it,
would agree with you.
outside of that bar, you can go to your own house, and if you try to drive with that alcohol in your system, you could be arrested.
Well,
So
exactly. I'd prefer to have if I'm going to the bar, say if we met with a few friends, I'd probably be having Coke or or something non-alcoholic at the beverage, there. I'd drive home, I might have a beer at home,
yeah,
you know?
well, um, if you go to the safe drinking spot, which is a bar, and then drive home and get arrested for DWI, I'll just have to say this to help Gary. It was Trump's fault that you got pulled over.
Okay.
Or
Right.
carnies. There were carnies. Like it could be either one,
Okay, so let's put it this way, to satisfy all of our listeners, the whole of the problems that we've heard today, including the cuneiform customer complaint, can be laid at the feet of either Trump or Carney.
Yes, indeed. Who knew that somebody who made a unsatisfactory business deal 4,000 years ago can now go and blame Trump or Carney? I don't know if there's any family left that would
Sue their asses, family.
yeah.
Sue their asses.
My great grandfather.
Except the only problem you have here in Canada is that thing called a 2-year limitation period. Certainly here in Ontario.
Oh well. Anyway, so the descendants of Nanny are not going to be too happy. 4,000 years later, they can't bring it up, because it's a statute of limitations. Anyway, so basically what's happening now, and we're close to the end of the show, so I will bring up Gaza again, like I always do. That is a disaster, and the West Bank is really bad. We find that there are brutal gangs that beat up Palestinians, even if they're Americans or Canadians or anybody there in that, and they burn cars and they rip down orchards and they knock down Christian churches and mosques and Christian churches, because in their mind they feel that God gave them that land, even though they haven't been there for 2,000 years, and they want to get rid of the people who have lived there for 2,000 years, get them off that land. And the atrocities that have happened in Gaza, even now, cannot be unnoticed, not even by the current administration. We see that Trump and particularly Vance have come down pretty hard on Israel and what they've been doing. You haven't seen this kind of resolve against Israel since Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan wouldn't put up with their crap, but they got away with more and more, and they have stronger and stronger, more powerful lobby groups in the U.S. But it hasn't been effective, because I wish Trump's Board of Peace would start doing some peace things because there are people still getting killed. There's still bombs going off. I mean, people try to put up a tent and put a school and a bomb goes off in it. And like Trump himself has said, you know, they're looking for one guy and they blow up the whole building.
Yeah.
All the innocent people in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.